Understanding Ilya's personality and attachment style is really fundamental when viewing his behavior at the beginning of the show, because a lot of times his behavior comes across as mean or cruel towards Shane, and the reality is very different. He is still very young at the beginning of this series and is deeply wounded by trauma, which shapes his attachment. And I am not a psychologist, but to me, he feels very much in line with someone who has dismissive, avoidant attachment. He fundamentally feels unworthy of being loved and has many core wounds, all of which stem from him believing that there's something inherently flawed within him, which would have been started in childhood by his family, notably his father, who we know is constantly finding fault and flaws within Ilya. He would believe that he must be broken because of this, and the loss of his mother and the instruction to lie about what happened to her would also inform this. He would not have grown up in an environment where he would have learned how to trust his own emotions. He would not have grown up being taught how to move through emotions either. Instead, he would have been hyper aware of how not to upset his brother and father and how to move around their emotions, and that his emotions were always secondary. He would have been praised for performance and faulted for most everything else, and he is resented by his older brother, and so internally he has very little self-esteem left to offer. So he would have built a persona to protect himself and hide behind. The bravado is a shield. He keeps everyone at arm's length so that they cannot harm him, and in the show, they allow Svetlana to be the one person who gets behind Ilya's defenses, but even then, he is not fully honest with her about Jane. This armor is also seen in the way that he escapes his life through multiple partners, seeking that escape and release in other people, and there's an ability to be intimate with no real attachment beyond the fleeting casual hookup. And Ilya likes the danger. He likes when it's a bad idea, someone he knows he shouldn't be with. Shane represents all those things times 10. He often seeks to feel in control with his partners because Ilya has no control in his personal life. But with Shane, Ilya often reflects feeling deeply out of control with him. He often initiates the control, then majority of the time Shane is actually entirely in control of the situation. The problem with all of this is that Shane disarms Ilya almost instantly. Ilya is attracted to him, curious about him, drawn to him in ways that he has never been before. Shane is almost a mirror image of him in terms of his hockey career, and he is the only person who competes with him or comes close on the ice. And then in their personal lives, Shane is the embodiment of everything Ilya is not and does not have. Ilya is jealous of his family life, his loving parents, his hockey skills, how easy being the face of a team comes to him, how well-spoken he is. So Ilya thinks of Shane as everything the league wants from their stars, and Ilya very much feels less than. All of these things make Ilya feel so much that he needs to push the feelings away. So when Shane holds up a mirror to Ilya's core wounds and feeling of unworthiness, or of not being enough, or of falling short, he instantly feels the need to put armor on to protect himself. He also feels deeply tied to Shane, and there's a beautiful moment early in the book where Ilya shakes Shane's hand after the World Juniors and thinks to himself, "We were supposed to stand alone at the top, but we will always be there together. We will keep climbing until no one can reach us, but it will always be together." So despite this persona that Ilya uses as armor to protect himself, he does know that Shane and he are equals, yin and yang, as I've pointed out in other analysis videos. And so beneath the teasing and sometimes harsh push and pull between them, Ilya's true self does come out when they are being intimate with one another. He always asks consent, he checks on Shane, he's kind and attentive with him before, during, and after. He allows Shane to control the situation entirely and make himself feel safe. And so I do think a lot of instances where viewers may feel like Ilya is purposefully triggering Shane, it's less about Ilya being purposefully mean and more about Shane internalizing Ilya's words incorrectly due to his own shame and self-beliefs. When Ilya says things like, "You look pretty," I'm sure he means that genuinely, but hides the truth within a joke, so Shane hears it as an insult automatically. He can't take Ilya's compliments as such. He thinks all of them are insults somehow. Yes, Ilya is teasing as an attempt to flirt, but Shane thinks it's making fun of him and doesn't see the humor in it. Same with situations like when he says to Shane, "You are scared," and Shane gets defensive right away. He thinks Ilya is making fun of him when he is genuinely asking and then validating him by saying it's okay. When Ilya cannot assign his own anger, he often displaces it by lashing out early on or internalizing it very deeply. And for someone who has dismissive avoidance, if their partner is mad at them or pointing out a flaw within them, it would be validating their own belief that they are better off alone and cannot be in a successful partnership. It would be a sign that they cannot meet the needs of another person. When something like that happens between Shane and Ilya in the scenes like the Vegas rooftop, Shane's anger and assumption that Ilya was hiding because he refuses to be happy for his MVP win, that would make Ilya feel hurt and possibly need to disengage altogether. Disengaging is allowing himself space and time to process his own emotions. So when Shane yells at Ilya and then is not receptive or open to Ilya's feelings when he reveals a part of himself to Shane, that he's going back to Russia, which is why he was on the rooftop. This is an example of a missed moment of connection between them because Shane doesn't understand what Ilya is trying to say to him, and that would feel like a rejection for Ilya's bit of connection. When Ilya kisses Shane, it's to give himself memories to hold on to while back in Russia, and in large part because he cannot help himself. Ilya is vulnerable when he kisses Shane in public like that, but then Shane rejects him again, and that hurts him. When Ilya does invite anger into he and Shane's dynamic, he often triggers it directly when the emotional stakes are getting too high. And triggering anger in a partner is an easy way to create emotional distance for an avoidant person and their partner when things feel too real. And this often stems from a deep-seated feeling of shame, which both Shane and Ilya feel and think to themselves often. This is most evident in the Olympics scene where Ilya is cold toward Shane because internally he wants nothing more than to grab Shane and hold him in his arms and tell him everything that's going on with him and his family, how much he wishes he could go back to Boston. But instead, he uses that anger to push Shane away, to create distance, because he feels unworthy of Shane caring about him, so he sabotages it. He does not have language to simply say, "I need space," so he creates opportunities to push Shane away instead. They do not speak for 6 months after the Olympics, and even though that comes across as cold and potentially mean to Shane, Ilya had spent every day thinking about him. And that's when Rachel Reed's scene of the Vegas hotel room and bathroom, in Ilya's point of view, is so pivotal because you can see how Ilya has tried to end things with Shane by going radio silent. And Shane does end up hurt by that. But Ilya is terrified by Shane and the fact that in that 6-month period, he missed him. That's dangerous, and he knows it. And he doesn't know what to do with the fear, so he tries to distance himself from the feeling by not kissing Shane, by keeping his distance physically, by drawing a boundary. And that's for his own self-preservation, not because he likes to be mean to Shane. He can't even look at Shane when Shane leaves the hotel room because Ilya is so hurt and upset and afraid of being alone once Shane leaves that room. But Ilya would believe that he will always be alone and that he deserves that. So once again, he pushes Shane away. That displacement of his pain and hurt is most notable when Ilya allows himself to get close to Shane again during the tuna melt scene and feels fundamentally rejected when Shane leaves. Leading up to the tuna melt scene, Ilya is admitting to himself that he and Shane were destined to clash forever. They are complete opposites in almost every single way imaginable, and yet Ilya found himself needing more after every interaction with Shane. And he knew that something in his core was drawn to him, which was dangerous. So when Ilya inches things forward by asking Shane to stay, testing the waters, and treating the day like fantasy building, he's trying to see how far he can go without Shane retreating. Ilya desperately wants to know if Shane is feeling anything, and the only way he knows how to get Shane to show emotion is to go about it in a roundabout way. He is fishing by bringing up women and trying to open the door for Shane to say how he feels, because he knows if Ilya were to ask him directly, Shane would either lie to him or run away. He spends the whole conversation trying to get a window into Shane's feelings about him, but Shane stays neutral the entire time. So Ilya brings up liking girls. Ilya saying, "I never hear about you with girls," is meant to create an environment where Shane has the freedom to say, "I like women too," or "I don't like women." Because for Ilya, liking men does not mean you also don't like women. So when Shane leaves after Ilya says his name, that's when everything implodes, because names are personal and he would feel a deep shame over that backfiring. You can see that Ilya is happy, then confused, then defensive. In many ways, it would validate his own feelings of unworthiness, having Shane walk out on him this way. We can see that he is hurt on the couch when he becomes more defensive. He almost dares Shane to stay, and then when he is met with a no, he slips back into that more aloof approach by calling Shane Hollander again to try and salvage the moment and guard himself from the pain. He had attempted to open up to him in ways he had never done before, by asking him to stay over, by cooking him food, by clothing him. And Shane's own avoidant attachment, which we will talk about separately, not Ilya's, is what sabotages this moment between them this time. Which leads us to the All-Star Hotel scene of episode 5, when Shane brings up that day, and Ilya once again acts aloof because that is his defense mechanism. He was deeply wounded by that interaction with Shane, so he tries to protect himself emotionally when Shane tries to get close to him again. He says things are simple between them because he does not want to open himself back up to rejection and pain again. Ilya would believe that he is better off alone, and that he is hard to love, and that Shane will eventually realize that and leave him, which is something that plagues him beyond the first book, and he thinks to himself quite often. Those feelings and his avoidant attachment are also compounded by the very real reality of him being a bisexual Russian professional ice hockey player who is in love with the captain of a rival team, and who has been publicly identified as someone Shane hates for nearly a decade. Shane is someone that he shouldn't be attracted to and have feelings for, but he does. And when everything points to Shane and Ilya as a horrible, terrible idea, they believe that until ultimately they are able to learn each other well enough to communicate and acknowledge that this pull between them is too strong to keep ignoring. And only then are they able to start to push beyond their own typical behaviors and grow both individually and together, because they are mirrors to one another, and they are holding up that mirror to the hard and ugly truths that each of them possess within themselves.